Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Find My Past Fridays Live. My name is Liam. If you are new around here, I work in the customer service team here at Find My Past, based in Dundee, Scotland. And as always, it's my pleasure to be here with you on another Fridays Live. It is Friday the 13th today, of course, so I hope everybody is staying safe, nothing too spooky going on out there. You have myself, of course. We've also got Niall in the comments today as well, so be sure to say hello to Niall. Not very often we get Niall in the comments, so much appreciated for his help today. The rest of the team are off gallivanting down at Boston Spa, so it's myself and Niall this Friday. So be sure to say hello in the comments. Let us know where you're coming in from. How's the weather looking where you are? What have you got going on this weekend? How's your week been? Let us know how you are doing. Got a few of our regulars coming in here as well. Daphne, Friday the 13th, as I say, hope nothing weird is going on out there yet. Full moon tonight as well, apparently, so stay safe out there. Sunny Somerset, sunny in Dundee today as well, although very cold. The sun's not really doing its job today. Still very cold. I am patiently waiting for spring. And we've got Roz coming in from rainy Massachusetts, so nice to know we're not the only ones. As I say, at least it's dry here today anyway, so long may that last as well. We have got Peter coming in from Sandhurst as well. Andrea, chilly Stoke-on-Trent. Yeah, very chilly today as well, as Anya is backing me up here as well. That bit chilly North Fife, but at least it's sunny. Yeah, as I say, I do like a crisp winter days like this, when as long as it's dry, no rain, no slush, nothing like that going on. So it's not too bad. It's not too bad. And we've got Suman coming in as well from a cold and sunny Guildford. So it seems like we're all in the same spot today. Everyone's cold and sunny. So as I say, hopefully it is dry for the weekend anyway as well. And you've all had a good week as well. As I said, let us know what you have been up to. It feels like it's been a busy week here at Findmypast and customer service in particular. But as I say, it's nice to get a little break with you all on a Friday afternoon. A nice end to the week as well. We've got Andrew coming in. Been dry day in this part of Lancashire with cold wind. That's the thing. It seems to be very windy out there as well. We are obviously, Dundee is at the waterfront down as well, so we get the worst of the wind coming through. But as I always tell my friends, it's one of the driest places in Scotland, Dundee. Not that it means very much in the grand scheme of things. Scotland as a whole is very rainy, of course, but as I say, we get less than anyone else does, so I'll take it for now. We've got Susan coming in from Thunder Bay, Canada. Looking forward to being in Scotland in a couple of months. Good stuff, Susan. Pleasure to have you over. Let us know where you're coming to in Scotland specifically. What have you got going on? Especially if you've got any family history trips planned as well. It'd be lovely to hear as well. And we've got Moira coming in from the original Washington, ancestral home of America's first president, George Washington. So there you go. Didn't know that actually. So very good. You learn something new every day as well. And we've got Victoria coming in. A warm cup is needed. Very warm. I just finished my coffee there, so I'm on the tap water now. But I think I'm going to need another coffee once this is all over, or maybe something a little bit stronger as well. So we'll see. And we've got Anne coming in as well from County Donegal. So that is where my grandfather's from, actually, Anne. So it'd be nice to know where in Donegal you're coming in from. Nice to have you in as well. Good to have some viewers from all over the place we've got here. We've got Massachusetts, we've got Canada, we've got New Jersey, we've got all up and down the UK and Ireland. So we're an eclectic bunch anyway, as I say, all corners of the world covered. And I've already spotted one or two question of the weeks coming in as well. So I'll pop that on screen before we go any further here today. So a bit of a hypothetical one today. So the question of the week is, if from today you could only research one ancestor, who would it be and why? So the rest of your family tree is wiped out. You've only got one name left in the family tree. That's the only person you can research. Who would it be and why? Is there any? It could be someone that you're still struggling to find records for, someone that's particularly interesting that you've got more to find out for, or maybe just your favorite ancestor. If anyone's biased in that sense, you've got a favorite ancestor, let us know. You've only got one name in the family tree. Who is it and why? Do let us know in the comments, and we will come back later in the show and find out a little bit more about everyone's answers for that question. So nice, some more weather reports coming in as well. Everyone's still getting rain, a lot more rain, appropriate for Friday 13th. Rita says, yeah, if rain's all that happens today, then we'll take it. I think And Anne is coming in saying she's near Letterkenny looking out over the Spilly. Very nice. So I was in Donegal a few years ago now. Me and my dad were talking about maybe planning another trip over at some point there. So my family is from Kincastle, right on the coast down there. So lovely part of the world, as I say, one that I would definitely want to get back over and visit at some point soon. So get a pint of Guinness ready on the bar for me, Anne, and I will see you at some point down there. So we will get stuck into our new records. That is, of course, why we are all here. So we'll pop some slides on screen at the moment and see what we have got this week. So I always last couple of sessions I've mentioned that the new records that I've got have all been updates to existing collections. They've all been parish baptisms, burials, and marriages, all been transcription only. Now, very important records, of course, crucial for family historians, but it's nice to get something a little bit more this week to speak about, something get your teeth into a little bit more. And we've got two really good updates this week as well. So starting off with the Middlesex monumental inscriptions. So the monumental inscriptions, if you haven't used them before, they are essentially transcriptions of headstones and tombs from around the country. This one is from Middlesex, of course, but if you do have ancestors anywhere else in the country, there are a lot of monumental inscription record sets out there as well. Be sure to use our old friend, the All Record Sets page, have a look for monumental inscriptions and see what counties are out there, because they're a really, really good record set, something a little bit different. And this particular one is, of course, transcriptions and images as well, which is always good to see. We love an original image here, so always good to see. And we have over 1,700 records added this week from 5 burial grounds. I've popped them on screen at the moment. You've got things like Feltham Prison, Victoria Lane Burial Ground in Hayes, Quakers in Staines. And as I say, they are transcription and image. But when you're looking at the transcription, there is a document link, it's called, and that will take you to an external document which has a little bit more about the burial ground itself. You've got ground plans, histories of the burial grounds, a lot of really good information in there. So if you notice any of your ancestors in this record set or any other monumental inscriptions and you're planning a trip out, then be sure to have a look at the document link. That will really help you get the most out of your trip as well. So as I say, they are transcription and images. So I'll pop a transcription on screen first of all. This is the transcription of one George Lowe. Now, when you're looking at the transcription, you might see that it looks kind of typical to a parish burial information. You've got his name, his birth year, the death year, how old he was when he passed, the place. Now, when you look at the right-hand side of the transcription, you've got the document link section that I was talking about. That will take you to a document that has a little bit more information about the burial ground itself. And one thing that I do really like in particular is the notes section. So the notes section just has a little bit further information, maybe clarification on something that might need confirmed. This one I liked. It says that DMS at the start of the inscription stands for Dis Mancus Sacrum, which translates to the memory of. So you may remember if you're with us a few months ago when I tested your Latin knowledge and I popped some memorable Latin phrases online and see what people knew they stood for. This is one I haven't actually come across, I don't think, before, DMS. So a good one to remember. And as I say, it's on this one and it may well be on others in the collection as well. So if there's anything on the image that you're unsure about, double check that note section and it might have the answers for you there. As I say, there is original images attached to these as well. And this is the first of the images. So you get an image of the tomb itself. This one's quite grand, not your typical headstone. It's a big rectangular thing there with all 4 sides. And when you're looking at the images as well, especially when it's one like this, where it's a little bit grander, shall we say, then there might be multiple images as well. So you'll get one of the tomb itself and then a close-up of the inscription on there as well. Now, I don't know about you, but I still find that quite hard to read. It's obviously a couple hundred years old now. It's a little bit weathered, perfectly understandable, and it's a little bit hard to read, especially the way the stone is aged over time. Some of the letters are quite hard to make out. However, the first image of the transcription I showed you was only part of the story. If you were to scroll down that page slightly, then you will see this. And this is a full transcription of the inscription that is on the tomb itself. This one is particularly interesting because, as I say, it was a big rectangle, like a family plot tomb. So there were 4 people mentioned in there, and all 4 of them are listed. So you can see it's got south side, north side, east side, and west side. So you know everyone it's on all the way around it there. And it's got some really good information as well, things that you would expect to see on a tombstone inscription: the name of the person, the date of death, how old they were, any close relations that they had, for example, but as well as all the information about the family itself. If you look at George Lowe, the second one down, the person who the original transcription was for, you can see that it also says that he was Master of the Royal Gardens at Hampton Court and Windsor to His Majesty King George II. So not just, as I say, his details, his family details, the key information, but also an occupation as well. And I think this one was 1757 or 1758 it was as well. And we all know that as lovely as occupations are to have on your tree, they can be quite hard to come by when you go back as far as that. So very nice little detail to have that as well. And yeah, some job that George had as well. So very, very interesting stuff. Now that is the first of 2 new record sets. The second is an update to the National School Admission Registers. This is an existing record set which has been online for quite some time, but it's updated over time, and we've got 10 new schools added from Halifax in Yorkshire, totaling over 7,800 records. And again, I've listed some of these schools that are in question there. You've got the Warley Road Girls' School, Warley Road Boys' School, Cottonstones National, Cornholme Board, all sorts of schools in there. As I say, I've never really looked into these ones myself for any of my own ancestors. So whether you've got Halifax ancestors or it is a national record set, so any other ancestors you've not yet had a look in, I would definitely recommend doing so, because there's some really great detail in these records. This update is very similar as well, although they are transcription only, still full of really, really rich detail. And if I pop on screen at the moment an example of Norman Ainley, you can see the kind of information that is in there. You've got his full name, his date of birth, his full date of birth, that is. You've got the event date, the name of the school, of course. You've also got his parents' names. You've got his father's first name there. You've got a residence as well. Now, this is a record from 1913, so obviously in between census years. So you've got a residence form in between census years, which, much like the occupation I mentioned before, always good to have that on the tree, that little bit of extra information as well. And one thing I did like about this one is on the right-hand side, you can see the years in which you completed the different years of school and the grade achieved as well. So nice little extra bits of information that not something you'd usually have in a family tree, your ancestor's school record, how did they do at school. So a nice kind of personal connection to your ancestor having that sort of information. So as I say, whether it is Halifax in particular or anywhere else in the country, I would recommend the National School Admission Register. Some really, really good information in there. So definitely worth a look over the weekend. Now, I mentioned before about the new record sets, which I've been speaking about in my last couple of sessions. And you may know, if you've been with me before, that I've got a bit of a running joke about the newspaper lists that I get as well. I feel like I always get stung with a massive long list of newspapers that I'm never going to have time to read out. But I've been done a solid by the licensing team this week, as there's only 2 updated news titles to talk about. And we've popped them on screen at the moment. So first of all, on the right-hand side, we have the Birmingham Mail from 1998. Always good to have a more recent newspaper online as well. Obviously, a lot of people are much, much further back than that in your family tree, but it's nice having the more recent stuff, whether it's a story you remembered growing up or an old obituary or some family notice that you maybe had a copy of back in the day and it's been lost in a house move or something like that. It's nice having those kind of more recent titles as well. Or even if you're just doing a bit of social history, a bit of local history, really nice to have as well. And I'm sure I've made this comment as well, but when I'm looking for front pages to add from new titles to slides like this, it can be quite hard to find one that isn't that gruesome or just not really what you want to be reading on a Friday afternoon. As I say, you're so used to all these old newspapers and the front pages of them that when you look at a more recent one, you realize just how strange some of them are, some of the news stories that we get pushed out these days. But this is one that I really, really liked. You can see the picture and the headline there. Grandad's £1 million lottery win will pay for vital op. And if you hadn't guessed by that horrendous pun on the front page there, it was a hip operation. Hip, hip, hooray is the tagline there. And you can see a lovely picture of him with his check for £1 million. So well done him. Hope everything went well. I did mean to try and follow up the story, see if there was any sort of a follow-up about the operation or anything like that, how he got on, what else he spent the winnings on as well. Something I'm sure I'm not alone in saying this. We've all dreamed of winning the lottery. £1 million or more would do very nicely. So it's nice to see a human story about something like that. And on the left-hand side as well, we have the picture goer. Now, I know Rose mentioned this on last week's session, and I was in the comments that day, and I made a comment that I'd already lost quite a bit of time to the picture goer. So when I seen there was updates from this newspaper, I had no option but to delve back in and see what else was out there as well. And you can see that this week we have 1915 to 1918, 1923 to 1925, and 1950 as well. So a lot more to be getting stuck into there. And as I say, I know Rose went into this last week, and there's nothing I can tell you about newspapers that Rose doesn't already know. So I will not try and match her, but I did, as I say, go down a bit of a rabbit hole. So I thought I'd share some of my findings with you and just see what this paper actually looks like as well. So obviously you can see from there, the front cover, it's always got these really eye-catching photographs on them of actors and actresses. And then when you go inside the newspaper itself, there's a lot more illustrations and photographs, and I'm always a sucker for illustrations. As soon as I'm looking at the thumbnails and I see something that looks like this, I'm always going to click on it and see what this is. And this is pen sketches of picture plays. This was a recurring feature in the newspaper. And this was, they had a guy, Frank Gray, this guy's name was, who would go and see plays, and he would sit and sketch out scenes from the play so that they could be included in the newspaper. One thing I particularly like about this is that each sketch is annotated with the actor's name. So if you do have performing ancestors, people who may have been in plays or anything like that, this is definitely worth a look. You might see an illustration like this, or even be lucky enough to have them feature on the front page of the title. So definitely worth a look. And also this is one, no ancestors mentioned, of course, but one that I couldn't help but click on. And yeah, I just found really funny. It's called Subtitle Silhouettes. And this are scenes that you might see when you're in the pictures watching a film in the cinema. And yeah, just as I say, I found this really funny as well. You've got dying of thirst, a guy having a good swally there. You've got two guys fighting. That one on the right was really funny as well. 2 ears pass by, a guy with two very large ears blocking your view. We've all had someone stand up mid-film and block the view in the cinema. We've got a mother dragging her son out of the film. And one of my favorites as well, a dastardly act. That was a wee boy with what I can only assume is a pea shooter in the cinema. And looks like it could be a scene from the Beano or something like that, with the pea shooter out there and the way it's bouncing off his head there. And yeah, as I say, I've been a while since I've been to the cinema, but I can't say I've ever seen anything like this happen in the cinema. As I say, we've all had someone walk past us when the film's on. I'm prone to having a little pint in the cinema these days. I know that's allowed these days, so I do enjoy that. But yeah, I've never seen a fight break out in the cinema or a guy with a pea shooter in the cinema, I must admit. I was thinking it might spoil your enjoyment of the film, but it might also be more interesting than the film itself as well, depending on what film you are going to see. There's no judgment here. And I mentioned at the start about the front covers of the papers and how they had those lovely photographs in there as well of the actors or the actresses. So when I was looking through the front covers, this is one which caught my eye because I could just see the silhouette of the guy. And when I saw it, I thought, maybe, is that a placeholder? Did they mean to go back and re-add the actual photograph at a later point? Like, what was going on here? As I say, it was very eye-catching to say the least. And when I actually went into the paper itself, I realized that it tied into a feature that they did. So this is the shadowgraphs, it's called. So effectively, they would put up 5 illustrations of different actors or actresses, and you had to write in to say who you thought the actress or actress was, and then there were prizes given to those who had the guest as well. So I was looking at this and I was thinking, this is obviously over 100 years ago now. So I thought that even if they had full photographs of the people, it'd be very hard pushed to actually know who the person was. But just looking at those illustrations, I'm thinking you'd be pretty hard pushed to guess who those people were. Even if this was, as I say, a modern day newspaper with current actors and actresses, I wouldn't know who these people were. So if you were doing well and you were guessing who these people were, you deserve the cash prize that was coming off it as well. I did try and find the answers for this just in case anyone had any ideas. As I say, you'd be doing very well to do so, but I couldn't find any prizes, any answers in there, I should say. But as I say, if anyone has any guesses as to who these people are, then answers on a postcard as well. Now, when I was looking at this, as I say, this was one from 1915, this title was, and I saw the prize was £10 first prize, £5 second prize. And I was in my head, I automatically see £10. I think of a £10 note, and I think £10 for getting all 5 of those right doesn't seem like much of a prize. I'd be looking for a bit more money if I was doing that. But then when you're thinking about that, you have to remember to say that it's 1915 that prize was. So the way money works, of course, it's not the same as it would be now. Now, I'm not sure if anyone has used this before, but the National Archives have a currency converter on their website. So you can pop in an amount of money and a year, and it will then tell you what that kind of purchasing power of that was at the time and how much it is worth in today's money. So if you were lucky enough to win £10 in this competition back in 1915, you would approximately have about £600 or so, £589.92 in today's money. So it's not too bad a prize after all. As I say, I was thinking about a £10 note for getting all them right, but as I say, almost £600, that's not too bad. And I always like the purchasing power of £10 back in 1915 and the markers that they use for it. So if you won that £10 prize, you'd be lucky enough to get yourself one cow back in 1915 or 7 quarters of wheat, depending on what you were up to. So as I say, it's a nice little thing, especially if you're looking at things like old fines in newspapers or rent or anything like that. If you see any old amount of money, the National Archives currency converter is really good at kind of putting a bit more context around that, and as I say, having a modern perspective on it and how much money it actually is. So as I say, I'm not promising you £600 if you get all 5 of those people right, but you will have my admiration, which I think is probably worth more than that. I'm sure you will all agree. So those are the new records and newspapers for the week. So I will pop my slides off of the screen, and I've noticed quite a few question of the week answers coming in. There was a bit jumping the gun, a bit popping one on screen, but we will take some time and have a look through them just now before moving on to the next segment. I'm just going to have a little sip of water first. Oh, so let's have a look and see. As I say, it was a bit of a hypothetical one, so thinking caps on and who you would actually research. So let's have a look. So we've got Sandra coming in. Sandra would research William MacLeod, who was born in Moray in 1759. After a career with the 53rd Shropshire, he settled in Portsoy, Banffshire. Would love to know how he came to be in Ireland as a boy when he enlisted. So yeah, a lot of movement going on there as well. And I am actually from Murrayshire myself originally too, so maybe help you out with a bit of local knowledge to that one as well, Sandra. Anya's coming in. So Anya has 5 times great-grandfather would be my choice. Robert Carey, born in Westmeath, enlisted in the 42nd Regiment of Foot at the start of the 19th century, was injured at Corunna, married in Musselburgh, Scotland, fought at Waterloo, and settled with his wife in Musselburgh. Lots of cousins related to him too are amazing too. Thanks, DNA. So sounds like you've already done quite a lot of research in there as well there, Anya, but a very interesting gentleman nonetheless. As a storied career as well, doing all that in his life. And it's lovely, like you say, that DNA connection, putting you in contact with the cousins as well, having that personal connection makes a difference when you're researching too, when you've got people like that who you can share that with and who are equally as interested as well. Who else have we got here? We've got Ellen would choose David Kirby. We'd love to know when and where he was born, his wife's maiden name, and his ancestors. He led a hard luck life, at least the last few years of it, and I've not been able to find. I would like to know how he got into such straits. So yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking about when I asked this question, that there could be different angles to approach it from, whether it's someone who is particularly interested on your family tree, as I say, if you've got like a favorite ancestor, quote unquote, or someone who there's more to be done, there's more to be found on. And yes, certainly sounds like David Kirby has got some unanswered questions there, Ellen. So I was speaking to someone on the phone the other day and saying about their subscription, and they were getting back into the research, and they had a few brick walls to break down. And I said that this was their year. This is the year they were going to make the breakthrough and get through that brick wall. So I will wish the same for you, Ellen, that this will be the year where all David Kirby's questions are answered. Who else have we got? We've got Andrew, one of his great-great-great-grandfathers, and the most interesting, joined the army just before his second child was born. 3 years later, was sent to India and his family too. And because of him, I have a one-name study. So very good as well. And when you have a one-name study going on as well, there's a lot more to be getting into as well, Andrew. So good stuff. And again, quite a storied career as well, especially being sent to India too. I know how important those Indian records that we have online are, and how popular they are too. I know a lot of people have roots in India when people were sent over. So a lot of good record sets to be used for that one, if that was your only person you were researching. Who else have we got here? We've got Vicky. We choose Parker Baggett is as far back as I can go on my father's family tree. Haven't been able to find his parents or how he's connected to the Baggett's E, that's as opposed to Baggett O that your name is there, SE, of North Carolina, or the Baggetts of Ireland and or Staffordshire, England. So that's another one, as I say, you've got that kind of that unanswered link, and it'd be a good one to research if you were dedicating all your time to Parker himself. Then I'm sure you'd be able to get those, especially when you've got, like say, that variant in the surname too, going back, and how he's connected to these different families, different clans around the world as well. So another very interesting one, as I say, if you were dedicating all your time to that as well. And we have a couple more coming in as well. Cindy would choose her great-grandmother, who I can't find anything about before marrying my great-grandfather. Looks like she married her uncle, not sure about that, who had been married 3 other times. They had 2 children, one my grandfather. So again, unanswered questions, a bit of mystery surrounding that one too. So much like I said to Ellen, this is your year, Cindy. This is the year we're all breaking down brick walls this year. I know someone's question of the week recently was, what is your research goals? So hopefully that is one of yours. That is the question that is going to be answered this year, I'm sure. And we'll do a couple more before we move on to the next segment. Daphne, I'm going to need to stick my head up a bit here to stay in shot. A question of my grand-uncle Henry Alexander Cameron, who died in Dundee 1959. Nice to have a Dundee mention in the question of the week. He died from carbon monoxide poisoning from coal gas. He was found by his son, whose name I can't read on the certificate, and I can't find anything in the newspapers, even though there was a post-mortem. The reason I went to find out more is that I've never met any of my mum's paternal family, as they all left for Canada, except for my grand-uncle Henry Alexander Cameron. So it's, that's another one that's mysterious there as well. And like you're saying about the post-mortem and the circumstances surrounding the death, there must be something else out there you would think that would have more answers. And it's always frustrating when you get something like a certificate and you think, this is going to answer all my questions. There's going to be so much more information on this. And then unfortunately, the way the handwriting is, or the way it's aged over time, whatever it might be, the son's name isn't legible. So yeah, unlucky one, that one with the certificate, especially Daphne. But again, this is it. There's going to be something out there for you as well. I'm sure of it. And we'll do one more as well. I'm already sitting up on my chair, so I'll pick another long one whilst my posture is good. And we pick her great-grandfather, James Lowry, or multiple different spellings of the surname. Found one of my great-grandfather's Patrick's marriages to Anne Ward registration in Dundee, another Dundee connection. That was a sheer accident. I did not notice Dundee was mentioned in that promise. Family spelt Locherty when in Scotland. Other versions when in Ireland, and the variation in spellings made search much more difficult. Great-grandfather Patrick showed his own place of birth as County Westmeath on census return to Ireland. James shown as Smithmaster in Scottish record. I think it deciphers as blacksmith. Yeah, Smithmaster is not one that I've come across before, but I'm sure someone in the comments may know a Smithmaster. So if anyone can help confirm that for Anne, that would be great. But yeah, like we were saying before about the Baggett and the spelling of that through the ages, it's always tricky when you've got one like that. And like you say, it just depends how the person writing the record in a lot of these cases. In the older censuses, when someone was doing the writing for you, or you were registering something at the office and you just said your surname and they wrote it down. All sorts of different spellings, different variations. And yeah, like you say, especially when it's spelt like this when they're in Ireland, spelt like that when they're in Scotland, just makes it that little bit trickier, which can be fun at some points. But like we say, when you've got 4 different spellings of the surname, where do you start with your search? So we've obviously got the name variants as well. That does apply to surnames as well. So that might help in picking out a few variants and accounting for, as I say, any enumerator creativity, shall we call it, with the surname. We'll take that off screen. So thank you very much again for all your answers to the questions there. We may have time towards the end of the session for a couple more, so do let us know still in the comments if you have time to answer your questions in there, and we'll see what time we have later on. Go back to the comments whilst I have another sip of water. So we've got a few answers for the Smith Master. So Andrew's saying it's a smith who's passed his apprenticeship. Linda suggesting if he was a master, it meant he had apprentices. And then we've got William as well. If Smith Master was reversed, it could be Master Smith, where they were an expert in the field like Master Tradesman, Master Blacksmith as well. So 3 possibilities for you there, and so it's worth having a look into there, especially. I do like that one where, like you say, Smith Master, again, open to interpretation when it's just written down like that. Could be the wrong way around, could mean something else. So some information there, some food for thought anyway, I hope, as I say, to help you on your brick wall journey. And yeah, breaking down brick walls and blogging are things I'm working on this year. Need to get my one place study rolling, but need to start writing again. How do you find the time these days? It's so hard, like you say, you've got all these things that you want to be doing. You've got the brick walls, you've got the blogging, you've got the one place study as well. And I think when whoever it was that asked what our research goals were this year, I said that just simply doing more of my own research was one of them as well. So mine is a little bit more stripped back than yours, Anne, but you've got a lot to get your teeth into there. So hopefully you've got more energy than I do anyway there. I wouldn't be having the energy to do all of that on top of working. So good luck to you. You'll need to let us know how you get on, especially with the blogging side of things as well. Good stuff. So we will move on to our next segment. We're going to talk about a record set, something that you may not have used before, something which I certainly hadn't used a great deal myself, but which can be extremely helpful, especially on the topic of trades, apprenticeships, blacksmiths, etc. So we're going to talk about the post office directories, and specifically the Scotland post office directories. Now, I've seen Scotland mentioned in quite a few answers to the question of the week there, so I'm sure these records will be helpful for quite a lot of people that we're speaking to, but there are heaps of directories on the website covering all over. You've got Scottish, English, Welsh, Irish, American, Australian, Canadian, all sorts of directories on the website as well. So if Scotland even isn't an area that you're particularly researching at the moment, some of these tips will help in using the directories, because as I say, not a record set or a type of record which I'd used a great deal myself, but hopefully you'll pick up some tips that will help you in the directories that you are going to be looking at. So some background to the directories. So these were directories which were published annually, and these ones in particular cover most of Scotland. They do kind of focus on the cities in Scotland more than anything, but there are county ones as well. I saw Murray and Banff mentioned in the comments earlier. There's quite a few from Murray and Banff. As I say, that's where I'm originally from, so always keep an eye out for them. So there's ones from there and ones that cover the whole of Scotland, cities in particular, counties in particular. And most of them are A to Z by surname, which makes things really nice and helpful. But there's also ones which are collated by trade, by address, by different things. And I'll show you a few examples of them in a couple of minutes, and you can see kind of what I'm looking at. And you can see all the information in there. You've got stuff like full name, the address of the business, and the trade that they held as well. And as I say, they're ideal for family historians like ourselves when you're looking for blacksmiths or smith masters, whatever it might be, or even if you're doing like local history, looking at the history of your one place studies, for example. It can be really nice knowing how many blacksmiths there were in an area, or a business that used to be listed at this address, for example, as well. And these records are OCR based, that's optical character recognition. So the search differs slightly from the most record sets on Findmypast. It can be a little bit trickier, but once I've shown you a few examples, I'm going to pull up the search page and we'll have a look together. I can show you how to get the most out of your searches of these records. But as I say, I'll show you some examples of what they look like. First of all, there's so many different sources in this record set, it brings together a lot of different directories. So a lot of the images can be quite different, although, as I say, similar information contained therein. So this is one example from the Dundee directory, 1904 to 05. As I say, they were collated annually, these were, so it'll be 1 year at a time, which is nice because you can kind of trace people through the years using that as well. It's not just a one and done sort of thing. These ones were collated by address. So this is listed in street and then house number on the left-hand side. And the thing that I love most about these records is that everyone is included. From a quick scan of the list here, you can see just the variety in occupations which is listed. The first person on the list is an organist. You've got wine merchants, coal merchants, bakers, dressmakers, hairdressers, spirit merchants, fish merchants, all sorts of people. So as I say, nobody is excluded. Any sort of trade is mentioned. So as I say, whether you're a blacksmith or an organist or anything in between, there's a good chance that your ancestor is going to be listed in a directory such as this. And we've got another example here. This is MacDonald's Scottish Directory and Gazetteer 1940. This is one which covered Scotland as a whole, or certainly the key locations in Scotland anyway. There was a lot of places mentioned, so I'm assuming it's, as I say, most of Scotland. And this is one which was collated by trade, first of all, and then A to Z in trade. So this is one that if you were doing, like I say, some local history or even social history, looking at the history of a particular trade in a location, this is a really good one, some really good information as well. For example, you can see on the right-hand column there, you've got hatters, herring exporters, hide and tallow merchants, and that's the same throughout as well. So there's all different trades, everyone listed there, moves on to the next trade. So it's really nice. It's nice to be able to see that sort of information. And as I say, especially if you are looking at the history of a trade or the history of a trade in a particular area, there's really good information, not just for family history as well. And then one last example, which I just stumbled upon by chance. This was another one of the Dundee ones. I was just flicking through the pages, and the first name on the top of the list was W and DC Thomson. So you may know that DC Thomson are the company that own Findmypast. They are a bit of an institution in Dundee, a well-known company. If you know someone in Dundee, there's a good chance they're going to have worked for DC Thomson at somewhere down the line as well. And as I say, it's been in the city for years and years. So it's nice to see a familiar name in the directories as well. And one thing I will mention when you're looking at one like this was an A to Z by surname one. And the thing that I thought was helpful about this one was, obviously, there's a lot of Thompsons in Dundee, especially. Thompson is a very popular surname. But if you were looking for maybe a more niche surname, you've got a kind of more unusual surname in your tree, it can be good as well because you're looking at one individual that you've searched for, but they're all listed on the page as well. So you may notice another one of your ancestors or someone with, as I say, the same unusual name as your ancestor that can be worth looking up as well. So it's nice seeing that as well. You can spot different things with the way they are collated. So those are a few examples. I will remove my slides from the screen and we will share my screen and we'll have a look at some examples of how to search these records, how to get the most out of that. So I will share my screen here. There we go. So on screen, you should see the Findmypast homepage here. So first of all, how would you actually find these records? So the kind of base way of doing so would be to click your search at the top of the page and go to directories and social history. And then on the directories and social history, under directories and almanacs, this is where you would start your kind of base search, as I say, much like your birth, marriage, death search, for example. You've got your first name, last name, year, location as well. One thing that is particularly handy about these, because as I say, there are so many directories covering different trades, different locations out there, is that even just before you properly delve into the records, I would recommend having a look at the Browse Record Set feature, and then that'll give you a full list of the record sets which is contained in this category, just so you can kind of get a feel for what you're actually looking for here, what is actually out there. And then once you have identified a record set from the By Record Set page, if my internet kicks in and this decides to load, then once you know the record set you were going to look into, then you can go to the next step and take it that a little bit further, which I'll show you. But yeah, as I say, you can see the sheer variety in these as well. The City of York trade directories, dental surgeons directory, you've got the Scottish Post Office ones we're going to speak about, and yeah, all over the place. And as I say, even other locations as well. We've got ones from Ireland, America, Australia, all sorts of things. And like I say, one of the lesser used categories, I would say, personally speaking, that I've not really used before. So a lot to get into. You can lose hours to these as well. So as I say, that's the kind of first step I would say would be have a look at that page, maybe even try a few searches, but definitely use the Browse Record Set feature to see what is out there, what is possibly out there for you. And once you have got that record set, you want to take things a little bit further, then I would personally go to the All Record Sets page. I don't think a live session has gone by where I've not spoken about the All Record Sets page, but as I always say, it's my favorite thing about the website. I love just looking through here, picking out random record sets, which I didn't even know we had, because as you can see, we've got over 2,600 of them. So there's always going to be some which I've missed. And we are going to search for the one I was looking at originally, which was the post office directories. And we've got that here. And this is where the record set would, the search page looks quite similar to what you had before. You can still pop in a first and last name. So you could pop in surname, for example. If you do my own, you could pop in a year or anything. Much like the Browse Record Set button that I mentioned on the last page, the Browse Directory button is a lot of information in here as well, because as I mentioned, this one brings together a lot of different sources that you can kind of see not only the individual record sets, but then here you're looking at the individual directories within the record set as well. And you can always tick a couple of them if you wanted to search for a couple at once, for example, as well. And if you scroll down the page as well, then we've also got a full list of all directories, and that's got some more information as well about the years that they covered too. So if you're unsure about what might be out there, or you're looking for a particular individual from a particular year, then that's a really good way of identifying them as well. And we'll try a search just to show what the result would actually look like. I'll pop in a name, so we'll pop in just William Thompson. We'll leave the year blank. You can use the Browse Directory feature there. As I say, you could put in Dundee, for example. But like I mentioned about the McDonald's one that I showed there, that's one that covered all of Scotland, not just Dundee, unlike these ones, which are all Dundee specific. So it might be better if you use the town and pop Dundee in there, or even the county if you're looking for a broader idea. And then we'll just try this search as a quick example. And then you can see the kind of information that you've got there. You've got the name of the directory that it comes from, the year, the town is obviously Dundee. That's a bit more helpful if you're doing a broader search in one of the national directories. That will show you the town that it's from, and you can sort them by year as well. So see the earliest, see the latest one as well. And then when you're looking at the directory image itself, it just looks like any other record set view that you would have the images for. You can zoom out, you can see the information. This is kind of what I was saying about the surname, for example. You can see that Tevendale is one which is mentioned on there. And if you were interested in more Tevendales, you've got the film strip down the bottom. So you could jump back a page and then see if there were any more Tevendales. There's not in this case, but you could jump back and flick through the images as well using the film strip at the bottom and the page numbers as well if you wanted to go even further through the pages. So that is one search way there, but as I mentioned at the start, that is really good for a bit of local history, a bit of social history as well, if there's anything in particular that you're looking for. So if I clear my search here, so say for example, you were interested in the history of hairdressing in a particular location, for example, then in the text search, this is essentially like the optional keyword field that you see on a lot of search pages. You can pop in anything in here, but you could pop in something like hairdresser, for example, and then you can still use the rest of the filters as well. So say I wanted to look up hairdressers in Glasgow, then you can search that there. And then again, you'll get the name of the directory, the year, the town, and the image viewer down the right-hand side as well. Now, when I was looking at the images there, and I was showing that you can flick through the images, you can use the film strip down the bottom. If you are maybe just looking for a bit of a nosy in these, or you're thinking there might be more information in one of the directories, then if you go back to the all record sets, you'll notice that there's also an image browse feature on this. Now, this is available for quite a few record sets, especially ones like the directories, for example. And this is really good as well. I'll show you why. So this is a bit more of a streamlined search page. There's no name or anything like that, but you can still use the browse directories. I'll pop in the McDonald's one that we looked up before. And you can see there's 18 results. And then this will show you all the years which are available for this there, how many images there are. As I say, this is one that covered Scotland as a whole, so there's no town or county mentioned because they are like Scotland as a whole on these ones. And then I'll show you why this image browse can be really helpful as well. So when you open up there, first thing you see is the front cover, which I always like to see as well. I like seeing the front covers. I don't know why, it just is one thing seeing the images on screen, but it makes it feel much more like you've got the book there and you're looking through the book, and then you can simply just go through that page by page. There's cool little adverts at the start of them as well. For this one was a rubber manufacturer that you can see here. And then when you start going through the images, you've still got the thumbnail. This was a good page as well. This is just a preface, so this is a little bit of background about the directory itself. It says this is the 28th edition of our Scottish Directory and Gazetteer. Got all sorts of information there about the counties, where it was pressed, all sorts of things. And another helpful thing, if you are just looking for a general look more than anything, is this index as well. So this will show you the contents. This will show you the page numbers that different cities, different counties appear on, and then all the full list of page numbers there as well. One thing I did notice when I was having a play around with this is that because there's so many pages at the start which have like indexes and different information, that the page numbers won't correlate. So for example, if you see that Aberdeen is on page 341, but if you went to 341 on the page viewer down the bottom there, you're not going to be taken to Aberdeen. You're going to be somewhere else. You're going to be in Glasgow. So as I say, it's you need to make adjustments, try and figure out how many pages there are at the start of the book before the actual page numbers kick in, and then adjust the page viewer that you're putting in that bottom right hand corner there, and you can flick through from there as well. But yes, as I say, some really, really good information in there as well. Even just looking at this page as a random example, this is another one which was collated by trade A to Z. You got sewing machine makers and dealers, shipping agents, all sorts of stuff. As I say, nobody was excluded from these trade directories. It looked like regardless of what your ancestor was doing, there is a very good chance that they're going to appear in one of those trade directories. So as I say, definitely one that I hadn't really used a great deal myself, but one that I will be getting into once I tick off that New Year's resolution and get back into my own research, stop going down these Friday Live rabbit holes. I will be definitely having a look in the trade directories for some more information, because as I say, my family, on paper, you don't think it's a very interesting job maybe, but they're still going to be in there. There's going to be information, there's going to be addresses, you can trace them through the years. So definitely worth a look as well. And I can see we've got a few people that have used them in the past. Elaine's saying that she's found them to be exceptionally useful. So yeah, a very good record set there. Daphne saying she's going to have a look in them as well. Janet's saying really interesting in this day. My ancestor was a letter carrier in London in 1801. His son followed on as a messenger to the Vice Chancellor, aka postman. So yeah, that's one, as I say, you could trace your ancestor through the years, and then his son through the years when his son followed on and took up the family business as well. And Linda's used them too. Linda's managed to pinpoint when a son took over the family business from his father using the directories. So yeah, very similar to what I was saying to Janet there, that not only can you do an ancestor itself, but a business itself. So if you're researching a family business or a local business, they're really good for following them through the years, especially in between census years as well. We all know 10 years is a long time in family history. You never know what's going to have changed. So following them through something like the trade directories can be a really good way of filling in those gaps. And yeah, much like Anya says herself as well, good for filling in timelines for ancestors between the census records. Exactly, Anya. I did not steal your comment. I swear I hadn't scrolled down yet far enough to see that. So glad we're on the same page anyway. As I say, it's perfect for that, perfect for getting more of a full timeline and not just every 10 years. So yeah, really good. Hope that has been useful. And as I say, if you do get stuck into the trade directories, you'll need to let us know what you found, any interesting stories, any mysteries that have been solved with the trade directories. Be sure to let us know as well. And I'll have another sip. Oh, it's strange when I'm sitting on the phone speaking to customers, I can go all day without drinking any water and I feel so bad for it. But then when I'm on these lives, I just feel every 5 minutes, it feels like sometimes I'm talking for half an hour at a time, even though it's only 5 minutes, sip of water, 10 minutes, sip of water. It feels like so much longer for some reason. So must like the sound of my own voice, I think. So we've got 8 minutes left. So I did miss a few answers to the question of the week. So we will go back and have another look at some more of them before I let you all get on with your Friday the 13th and subsequent weekend as well. So we've got a couple more, we've got 2 more coming in that I missed last time. So we've got Jeff, who would pick his great-grandfather as the one ancestor that he would research. William Oakley, born 1834, joined the 70th Foot at Templemore, Tipperary at 14, aged in 1847, went to India aged 15 in 1848, then 1861 New Zealand, mentioned twice in New Zealand papers, rising to sergeant in the band, serving 21 years. So I can see why that's your pick, Jeff. That is, again, another very storied career, especially being so young as well, having achieved and done so much at that age. As you say, joining at 14, going to India at 15, finding himself in New Zealand, finding himself sergeant in the band. So yeah, as I say, I can definitely see why that is your pick. That is a really good one. And like you say, the New Zealand record, New Zealand newspapers, you've got the Indian records, the military records. There'd be so much to get your teeth into there. So a very, very good pick. And we've got one from Sue Moon as well, which I'd missed. Very difficult to choose just one. It is very difficult to choose just one, especially when your trees are as large as I'm sure some of you are. Picking it down to one ancestor, it can be quite hard to think of. And I'm sure if I asked you the question tomorrow, a lot of you would probably give different answers because you've thought of a different ancestor that you've forgotten about. So it's a hard question. But she would choose her 2 times great-grandfather, Ramsay Ross, early 1800s to 1887. Have the date of his marriage, but can't find a marriage record. Can't find a birth or baptism either. We'd love to go further back. So yeah, that's another one that's on the brick wall list for this year, I'm sure, Suman, and you will get there this year. And as I say, if anyone has any tips for Suman, be sure to let her know as well. And we can help each other, see what we can do for each other with all these brick walls. And as I say, it's nice to know sometimes you're not alone. I know family history sometimes can feel a bit of a lonely hobby. Sometimes you're sitting looking up all these old records. You think it's just me that has this brick wall. And then you come in a session like this, you see everyone else has these brick walls. We're all in it together, as I say. So we've all got something we need to find and need to go that next step further with. So again, this will be your year, Shuman. This is the year you will find them there. And we will go back to the comments before, as I say, I let you all go. It's amazing how quickly the time goes on this. Sometimes when I'm doing my preparation for this, I think, how am I ever going to fill an hour? I'm going to be waffling on here. I'm going to end up finishing at 4:30. And the next thing you know, it's 5 to 5. And we are got another session in our books. And saying Liam is dehydrated. Dundee is the driest part of Scotland. So I was hoping you'd back me up on this. And no one believes me when I say this. So I was hoping if anyone, you would be backing me up on this. So as I say, if it stays dry for the weekend, then we've done all right. Good stuff. So, yeah, as I say, I will let you all get on, but thank you very much again for joining me today. I think I'm back in a couple of weeks, so I will see you then. I'm sure I'll speak to some of you in the comments in these sessions in the interim as well. But thank you very much again for joining. Hope you all have a lovely weekend, and I will speak to you all very soon.